Generic drugs offer low-cost access to millions of patients and account for 80% of all prescriptions filled in the U.S. But where do generic drugs come from? They start as brand-name drugs developed by biopharmaceutical research companies. A brand drug's life cycle begins 10 to 15 years before it ever reaches the patient. It involves extensive scientific research and medical testing and costs an average of $1.2 billion to develop, including the cost of failed drug candidates. There are many, many candidates that fail due to the many uncertainties along the way. On average, of the 5,000 to 10,000 drug candidates that enter preclinical testing, only about 5 will end up being studied in humans in carefully controlled studies called clinical trials. Out of those 5 candidate drugs, only 1 will eventually be submitted to and approved by the FDA for use in patients. While a new drug is being researched and developed, its patent application is filed years before it can enter the market. Following approval of a new medicine by the FDA, generic companies are allowed to sell copies of a brand drug within about 12 years on average. In this time, drugs must earn enough revenue to fund continued research into new medicines. On average, only 2 of every 10 new drugs approved by the FDA will ever earn revenues that exceed average research and development costs, revenues that are needed to support the cost of many drug candidates that don't make it, and to fund future R&D projects. Generics, on the other hand, have very low research costs because they are approved by the FDA based on the research done by the company that developed the original brand drug. That's one reason generics can be offered at low cost. Generic companies don't have to do the extensive research that leads to medical advances. Once a generic becomes available, it can quickly replace use of the brand drug. Usually, the generic copy is overwhelmingly prescribed and dramatically reduces the brand sales. Generic drugs are the final phase of a long life cycle that starts with extensive research to develop a new brand medicine. Without innovative brand drugs, we wouldn't have the generic copies that follow, which are used at low cost by patients for decades to come. The prescription drug life cycle offers patients affordable access to medicines and continued research by innovative biopharmaceutical companies on new medicines in disease areas like Alzheimer's, cancer, multiple sclerosis, depression, and diabetes.